Have you ever looked someone in the eye and wondered, are they telling me the truth? Most people think liars are easy to spot. They imagine nervous voices, shaky hands, or avoiding eye contact. But the truth is, skilled liars know how to hide those obvious signs. The real clues are much more subtle. Today, you'll discover 8 psychological signs that can help you recognize deception before it's too late. Once you notice them, you'll never listen to people the same way again. Everyone lies. Some lies are harmless, while others can destroy trust, damage relationships, or cost people opportunities. The challenge is that lies rarely sound obvious. Most people don't catch deception because they're watching for dramatic behavior instead of subtle patterns. The truth is, lying places extra pressure on the brain. A person must remember what really happened while keeping their false story believable. That mental effort often leaves small clues behind. Today, you'll learn 8 psychological signs that can help you recognize deception before it fools you. Liars usually remember the main idea of their story, but they often forget the smaller details. Ask the same question later using different words, and subtle changes may begin to appear. The timeline shifts. The sequence of events changes. Certain details disappear while new ones suddenly take their place. Honest people recall experiences because they actually lived them. Liars must remember the version they invented. The more times they repeat that story, the harder it becomes to keep every detail perfectly consistent without making small mistakes. When someone lies, their brain has to work much harder than when they're telling the truth. An honest person simply recalls a memory, while a liar must invent one that sounds believable. That's why some liars answer almost instantly because they've rehearsed their story. Others hesitate for a moment as they create a convincing response. Neither reaction proves deception on its own. But when unusual timing appears alongside inconsistent details or nervous behavior, it becomes another valuable clue that something may not be entirely truthful. Sometimes the biggest clue isn't what a person says, it's how much they say. When someone is lying, they often overload their story with unnecessary details to make it sound more believable. Instead of giving a clear answer, they include random names, places, and conversations that have little to do with your question. Honest people usually keep their answers simple because they're recalling real events. Liars often add extra information to convince you, but those unnecessary details can eventually create contradictions that expose the truth. Words can be carefully chosen, but body language is much harder to control. When people tell the truth, their facial expressions, tone of voice, posture, and gestures usually support what they're saying. A liar, however, may smile while describing something upsetting, shake their head while saying yes, or avoid natural movements altogether. These subtle mismatches create signals that something feels off. One inconsistency doesn't automatically prove deception, but when several appear together with other warning signs, they can reveal that the person's emotions don't truly match the story they're trying to make you believe. Sometimes the strongest clue isn't nervousness, it's an emotional overreaction. When honest people are questioned, they usually focus on explaining what happened. Liars, however, may become unusually defensive. They raise their voice, act offended, or accuse you of not trusting them. Instead of answering calmly, they try to shift your attention toward your question rather than their behavior. This emotional response can be a strategy to make you feel guilty and stop asking questions. The stronger the reaction to a simple question, the more carefully you should pay attention. Another behavior that often goes unnoticed is repeating your question before giving an answer. This small habit can give the brain a few extra moments to build a believable response instead of recalling a real memory. If you ask whether they were somewhere yesterday, they may repeat your question first before replying. Honest people can do this occasionally, especially when they mishear you. But when it happens together with changing stories, hesitation, or defensive behavior, it becomes another valuable clue that they may be creating an answer instead of remembering one. One final sign appears when someone wants the conversation to end as quickly as possible. After giving an answer, they may suddenly become impatient, change the topic, or suggest discussing it another time. The longer the conversation continues, the greater the chance they will contradict themselves or reveal something they did not plan to say. Honest people are usually willing to answer reasonable questions because they have nothing to remember except the truth. Liars often prefer to escape the conversation before small mistakes begin exposing the story they worked so hard to create. No single behavior can prove that someone is lying because honest people can become nervous, confused, or emotional too. The real secret is looking for patterns instead of isolated moments. When changing stories, defensive reactions, avoided questions, repeated phrases, and mismatched body language appear together, the chances of deception become much higher. Trust your observations but never jump to conclusions without enough evidence. The more carefully you listen and observe, the easier it becomes to recognize dishonesty before it causes serious problems in your personal and professional life every single day. Imagine asking a coworker if they finished an important task yesterday. Instead of giving a direct answer, they start explaining how busy they were all day. Later you ask again and suddenly the timeline changes. Then they become defensive and try to end the conversation quickly. None of these behaviors automatically prove they are lying. But when multiple signs appear together, a pattern begins to form. This is exactly how investigators think. They do not trust one clue alone. They combine several observations before deciding that something deserves a closer look. They know evidence is stronger than assumptions. The biggest mistake people make is searching for one magical sign that instantly exposes every liar. Real life does not work that way. Honest people can become nervous and liars can sometimes appear calm and confident. That is why psychologists focus on patterns instead of single behaviors. When changing stories, defensive reactions, avoided questions, repeated phrases, and mismatched body language appear together, the likelihood of deception increases. Observe carefully, stay objective, and avoid jumping to conclusions. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone, but to become harder to deceive. If you found these psychological signs helpful, subscribe to The Only Option for more videos about psychology, human behavior, confidence, and self-improvement. Every week you will learn practical insights that can help you understand people, make better decisions, and avoid common social mistakes. Remember, one behavior never proves that someone is lying, but consistent patterns often reveal the truth. Keep observing, keep learning, and trust evidence more than assumptions. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video where we uncover another hidden principle of human psychology.